揽投资，国内专业的互联网理财平台，收益超银行活期数倍，已为众多用户带来丰厚收益。揽投资，理财新选择。
源于民族之心，兴于品质之巅，成于健康之路。有爱有缘有三元。
总部设在英国伦敦的《经济学人》杂志一向把自己的视角定位于全球，欧洲的难民危机、中美关系、巴黎气候大会，这些话题也都在贝多斯的视野之中。贝多斯认为，难民危机是欧洲数十年以来所面临的最大问题，将对欧洲的未来产生影响。而中美之间在一些领域存在零和关系，但在更多的方面可以实现双赢。关键在于双方看到并接纳对方的领导力，这将影响未来的世界格局。而对于年底在巴黎举行的联合国气候大会，贝多斯认为，会议能否取得成果，还要看各碳排放大国的政治意愿。
I think you criticize the coalition government attitude toward the refugee issue, and I think it's created kind of chaos and confusions among the leaders
in Europe. No, I absolutely agree. I think this is the biggest challenge facing Europe in decades, and I think that Angela Merkel is absolutely right when she puts it in those circumstances. I think it will have a bigger impact in shaping the future of Europe, quite possibly than the euro crisis, because this brings what is at the heart of this? The heart is Europe's values. You know, the European Union was set up in some sense to epitomize the European values that include support for and help for refugees. And the reason that Germany has behaved in the way it has, I think, is very largely historically determined, that they have a very strong sense of that. It's also, however, not just about Europe's moral attitude towards refugees, it's also about Europe's attitude to migrants at a time when Europe both has politically an increasing concern about immigration, but frankly economically demographically needs younger workers. You know, Germany is a country whose working population is declining and aging fast. So it brings together very many difficult things for the Europeans. I think thus far, and you're right, you described a cover we had called Europe's Boat People in April, where we were very critical of the response. We called it it's a moral question, but one that the Europeans have been unable to deal with very well. And now it's come to a head again, and I think how Europe deals with this will define whether we can be proud to be Europeans, but it will also define how Europe sets itself up for the future. Will it try to put up barriers and stop things, or will it welcome people and integrate them? It's a very, very big question.
But I think, yes, this is, I think, one side of the coin. The other side is that a root cause lies in the chaotic Middle East and the actual anarchic situation.
That's a very fair point. There are several root causes. The movement of migrants to Europe are several different kinds of migrants with several different causes. And I think if we put them together, there are broadly three. The first is that the simple economic gap between the standard of living in Africa and the standard of living in Europe has always been huge, is huge, but now it is increasingly possible for people to move. Globalization, the reduction in the cost of transport and so forth means that people can move for economic reasons in a way that 30 years ago, if you were in a very poor village in Mali, it was not conceivable to get to Europe. And now it is. So that's one change. That's then been exacerbated by the political upheaval in many countries, and I haven't even got to Syria yet, but many countries in Africa and around, where the pressure to move or to move away from home has grown. Mm-hmm. And then the third part, as you say, is the tragedy in Syria and the collapsing of states around there, the phenomenon of the Islamic State, all of those very acute. And so Syria is the most acute, but there is a broader group of countries from which people are coming. In Syria, you're right that it is, I don't think the Western reaction to the Syrian events has been one that we can be very proud of. It's not simple to know what to do, and many people say, well, the only answer to the refugee crisis is to, go and sort out Syria. Well, sort out Syria is very, very hard. It's not. The outside policy has not been terribly good, but it is not going to be an easy one to sort out. And I think that that's an important part of this. The consequences of this crisis will be needing to focus again on trying. But I am not. I don't think it's as simple to say you can just go in and sort it out.
In the short and medium term, people say this is we cannot find the perfect solution for this problem.
There's no, and I think it will be a challenge that has to be looked at on many fronts. More needs to be done to try and help end bloodshed, help boost the economies in those countries. I mean, I think one of the, it will be essential to find ways to enable faster economic growth, faster reform in a lot of Arab and Middle Eastern countries. There's a huge, they have very young populations, hugely growing populations, and terrible economies. And that's a very, very big challenge. And unless those economies grow, the pressure for people to move elsewhere is going to grow dramatically. But I think we shouldn't be naive. There are going to be many people who see a better life in Europe. And at the same time, Europe needs people. If you look on a 20, 30-year horizon, the sustainability of Europe's welfare state, the sustainability of Europe's standard of living will depend on having more workers. But we also need to be conscious that the pace at which people assimilate is not infinite. You cannot expect countries to absorb limitless amounts of people without thinking through how that can be done. And for me, there are two drivers. The first and clear one, the lesson of previous migrations of large people is people integrate best if they work. You need to have people in the workforce fast. And the second is I think we can learn from previous big migrations. And if you look at how the United States absorbed huge numbers of people, it's possible to do, but you need to have people integrated, assimilated, and working.
Yeah. First of all, you provide work for them.
You absolutely have to. And you have to let them work. I mean, one of the kind of ironies of the European system is when people are applying for asylum, so the refugees, a process that can take a long time, they're not allowed to work. So you prevent the integration from happening.
If you look at the whole picture, so you can see all the flash points, not just few bright spots. So cyber attack, territories in South China Sea, and a lot of Chinese domestic concerns. So
I think broadly there are some misperceptions on both sides of this. There is a tendency on both sides actually to view the Sino-American relationship as a zero-sum relationship. That one's up, one's down, one's doing better, the other one isn't. And in some areas, I'm sure that's true. But broadly, there are many, many, many win-win areas. And managing that relationship in a way that both sides see their respective role and importance in terms of, frankly, global leadership, for me, that is whether that can be done is a very important determinant of what the world economy will look like over the coming years. Traditionally, we haven't been very good at it. You look back and you see, rising powers and dominant powers. The relationship hasn't always been so great. I think it's managing thus far. It's been actually remarkably well managed, and I think that is the challenge going forward. And it requires a sense of responsibility on both sides.
Okay, maybe final question about what's your projection about the year-end Paris and climate change summit?
Actually, that's an area where you see something extremely positive happened between China and the US. Right? That is an area where neither side had been doing had been saying, well, it's not our problem. You created it, and the US had been the sort of really not focused on it either. And then suddenly, actually, both sides are being much more responsible. So I think that is an area where, if we have serious progress, it will be because there has been progress between China and the US. And on a bilateral level, there seems to be some recognition of that, and both sides have separately been actually acting. And President Obama has essentially given up on Congress and used executive action as a route forward on that. And I think it's not, I'm sure the action is not as bold as many climate change activists would want, but it's a huge step forward.
Okay, but are you optimistic about we can reach a legally binding deal after,
Well, people are more optimistic about Paris than they have been at previous of these UN conferences.
Not a repeat of Copenhagen.
Well, that's, I mean, no one wants a repeat of Copenhagen. I actually think that having targets and so forth is extremely important, but what really matters is a willingness within the main CO2 emitting countries to act. And I'm beginning to see that willingness in the countries that matters most. And so are we going to do enough fast enough? Not clear yet. But as countries, perhaps you wouldn't be surprised given where I work and that I've been with the economists for a long time, but I'm a great believer in markets, and I'm a great believer in that people, as countries grow wealthier, as per capita income rises, people become more focused on concerns like environmental concerns, and you see that very much here. And so I am also very much a believer in man's capacity to innovate and to find solutions to problems. And so I think we are recognizing the magnitude of the situation, and action is being taken. I'm not yet confident whether it will be enough quick enough.